At the end of our last journey, humanity achieved something that had never existed before. The Sumerians built thriving cities. They invented writing. They developed organized governments. And for the first time in history, civilization had truly begun. But there was one major problem. Mesopotamia was not a single country. It was a collection of powerful city-states: Uruk, Ur, Lagash, Kish, Eridu, Nippur. Each had its own ruler, its own army, its own gods, its own ambitions. Sometimes they traded peacefully. Other times they fought brutal wars over farmland, water, and power. Victory rarely lasted. One city would rise, only to be defeated a few years later by another. For centuries, Mesopotamia remained divided. No king was powerful enough to unite them all. Yet everything was about to change. Far to the north of Sumer lived another people. They spoke a different language. They followed many of the same gods. But unlike the Sumerians, they were not yet famous builders of great cities. They were known as the Akkadians. For generations, the Akkadians lived alongside the Sumerians. The two cultures traded with one another. They learned from each other. Sometimes they fought. Sometimes they cooperated. Over time, the border between them became less clear. Many cities contained both Sumerian and Akkadian people living together. Few could have imagined that one day an Akkadian ruler would completely transform the ancient world. Around 2334 BC, a man appeared whose life would become one of history's greatest legends. His name was Sargon, but according to later stories, that wasn't the name he was born with. Ancient legends tell us that Sargon's mother secretly placed him inside a woven basket. She sealed it carefully, then placed it into a river. The current carried the tiny child downstream. Until a gardener discovered the basket, he rescued the baby, raised him as his own son. No one knows whether this story is completely true. It may have been written centuries later to make Sargon seem chosen by destiny. But one thing is certain: he did not begin life as the king of a mighty empire. Instead, Sargon started as an ordinary servant. According to ancient records, he worked as a cupbearer. That may sound like a simple job, but in the ancient world, a royal cupbearer was one of the king's most trusted officials. His duty was far greater than serving drinks. He protected the king from poison. He attended royal meetings. He listened to military discussions. He observed political decisions. Every single day, Sargon stood close to power, watching, learning, understanding how kingdoms truly worked. While others saw a servant, Sargon was quietly studying how to become a ruler himself. Beyond the palace walls, however, Mesopotamia remained trapped in endless conflict. City fought against city. Kings betrayed one another. Alliances formed, then collapsed. Farmers suffered whenever armies marched across their fields. Trade routes became dangerous. Entire harvests were destroyed during wars. The people wanted stability, but no leader had ever managed to create lasting peace. Sargon believed he could do what no one else had ever accomplished. Not simply defeat another city, but unite them all. One kingdom, one ruler, one empire. A dream so ambitious that no one had ever achieved it before. And in the next chapter of our journey, that dream would ignite a series of wars that would reshape human history forever. After years of watching kings rise and fall, Sargon finally made his move. He gathered loyal followers, trained a disciplined army, and challenged the rulers who had dominated Mesopotamia for generations. His first major obstacle was Lugal-Zagassi, the powerful king of Uruk. At the time, Lugal-Zagassi controlled much of southern Mesopotamia, and believed no rival could threaten his rule. But Sargon was different. He wasn't fighting for a single city. He was fighting for something the world had never seen before. The two armies eventually met on the plains of Mesopotamia. Thousands of soldiers armed with spears, shields, axes, and bows marched into battle beneath blazing skies. The fighting was fierce. Dust filled the air as warriors clashed across the open fields. After hours of brutal combat, Sargon's forces broke through the enemy lines. Lugal-Zagasi's army collapsed, and the mighty king was captured alive. According to ancient records, Sargon did something extraordinary after his victory. Instead of quietly removing his rival, he marched the defeated king through the streets with his hands bound, demonstrating that a new era had begun. One by one, the proud Sumerian city-states realized they could no longer stand alone. Uruk surrendered. Ur accepted his authority. Lagash, Umma, Kish, Eridu, and many others soon followed. For the first time in human history, dozens of independent cities answered to a single ruler, but Sargon didn't stop there. Unlike previous kings who simply collected tribute, he created an entirely new system of government. He appointed trusted governors to rule each city in his name. Taxes were organized more efficiently. Soldiers protected trade routes that had once been plagued by constant warfare. Merchants could travel farther than ever before, carrying grain, copper, timber, precious stones, and textiles across a growing network that stretched throughout the empire. With peace returning to many regions, trade flourished. Farmers harvested larger crops. Craftsmen produced better tools and finer pottery. Cities became wealthier, and new roads connected distant communities. For ordinary people, life slowly became more stable than it had been for centuries. Sargon's greatest victory was not only on the battlefield. It was proving that many different cities, cultures, and peoples could exist under one government. Yet ruling the world's first empire would prove far more difficult than building it. Conquered cities still remembered their old kings. Some accepted Akkadian rule willingly, while others waited for the perfect opportunity to rebel. Beyond the empire's borders, rival kingdoms watched Sargon's growing power with fear. They knew that, sooner or later, the conqueror of Mesopotamia might turn his attention toward them. The world's first empire had finally been born, but keeping that empire together would become Sargon's greatest challenge. And the next chapter of his remarkable story was only beginning. Although Sargon had united Mesopotamia, keeping such a vast empire together was far more difficult than conquering it. Rebellions broke out in several cities as local rulers tried to regain their independence. But Sargon acted quickly. Whenever unrest spread, he marched his armies across the empire, defeated the rebels, and restored order. Over time, people realized that this was no ordinary kingdom. It was the world's first true empire. Sargon's influence continued to grow beyond Mesopotamia. His armies expanded into Syria and reached the Mediterranean coast, while trade routes stretched farther than ever before. Merchants carried grain, copper, timber, precious stones, and textiles across thousands of kilometers, connecting cultures that had once been isolated from one another. To rule such a large empire, Sargon appointed trusted governors to manage distant cities, protected major trade routes with permanent soldiers, and created a stronger system of administration. These ideas helped inspire many of the great empires that would come later in history. Instead of destroying Sumerian civilization, Sargon preserved much of its culture. Writing, religion, architecture, and knowledge continued to flourish under Akkadian rule. The Akkadians and Sumerians gradually blended together, creating one of the ancient world's most influential civilizations. For decades, Sargon remained the most powerful ruler of his time. His victories became legendary, and later kings looked to him as the model of a great conqueror. Yet even the greatest empire faced new challenges. Rebellions returned, enemies gathered along the borders, and the future of the Akkadian Empire became uncertain. Still, Sargon's greatest achievement could never be forgotten. He proved that many different cities and peoples could live under one ruler. In doing so, he created a model that future empires, from Babylon and Assyria to Persia and Rome, would follow for centuries. But the story of the Akkadian Empire was only beginning. Soon, one of Sargon's descendants would achieve even greater fame. He would conquer new lands, claim divine power, and become the first ruler in history to declare himself a living god. His name was Naram Sin, and that is where our next chapter begins.